Hello everyone, I'm Mats, and thank you so much to the organizers for this lovely conference and for having the chance to talk here today. I'm gonna present this paper that I've been working on, and I'm from the University of Copenhagen, and this is what I plan to say today. A little bit about my background, the research question, TV music competitions in general, my methodological framework, some preliminary results, this is a work in progress, and finally some things I would love to discuss with you. And no matter if you read my paper or not, I will mention some insights, but also try to take it a bit further. Sorry, I'll try to keep up. This was the itinerary for today. A little bit about my background. I'm from media studies and I'm a TV scholar. So the Eurovision Song Contest is so many things. It's all of this large spectacle with lots of things going on around it. But today, for this piece, I'm approaching it as a piece of television and as an audiovisual media text. So I'm looking at the audiovisual product here. It's a lot of things, not least all the stuff around it. I'm doing that because I've been working with television, the television industry, studying that since my PhD project, looking at idea development, television production, looking at ratings, interviewing editors, observing idea development sessions and all of this in television production. And also discussed that in a monograph from 2022 about how we can study creative processes in media industries. And I'm also studying other media industries, just to say a little bit more about my background. Currently in a project about autonomy and time in media production, comparing the podcast industry and the video game industry. And I'm a long-time fan of the Eurovision Song Contest. And I'm also here as a part of the new Escape project with Lisa and Sebastian and several others here today, which is really great. And my motivation for sort of approaching this as a little piece of television and perhaps even a piece of reality TV is that I've been working with reality TV, studying that also on streaming services. And we know from the research about public service media that these organizations have changed, they have adapted to streaming, the digitalization of the television medium, and they are also making increasingly reality TV content and talent shows. And of course, I realized that the Eurovision Song Contest has a much older history than sort of the wave of reality TV formats we've seen in recent years. But it made me curious about what we could call the influences or potential cross-pollinations happening here between the reality TV competitions and the ESC and how that has developed over the years. I think one obvious consequence of all of this, what we might call, I think of talent shows here as a sub-genre of reality TV, is that, of course, many Eurovision artists have previously been talent show contestants, and indicating that the two types of programming may have similar appeals and share a talent pool to some degree. We even know in certain cases, talent shows about singing have been used as a space for the national selection, for instance in Operación Triunfo in Spain, which underlines the connection between these two types of programming. But I think the bigger question here is, what is the relationship actually between the two and how has it evolved? So that brings me to my research question here. Yeah, we have to make it flashy. This is... So my question is, what influences from reality TV can be found in the Eurovision Song Contest finale since the late 1990s? And when I did my literature search, it looked like this relationship has not been studied that closely, and that perhaps I could contribute something of value here. And I'm also thinking, has the ESC in fact become more similar to reality talent shows over time? Of course, we know that there is a history before this, that music competitions really date back to the antiquity. And in Europe, of course, to the Sanremo Music Festival in Italy, still being broadcast as one of the oldest and longest running TV programs still on air. Um, and that this served as a prime inspiration for the Eurovision Song Contest. We also know that in early TV programming we can find a lot of variety shows, and these were even inspired by the traditions of host-driven radio shows, inspired by vaudeville with novelty acts. And these shows are usually a mix of music, dance, comedy, entertainment, and were a staple of early television. And to jump sort of ahead a little bit, I think a clear trend from the late 1990s was reality programs about singing. They continue to be an important genre in many regions today, and on various services some of these formats are still running. You probably know some of them from your own countries. And they are still popular today, also in the streaming era, not least because this content can have a mass audience appeal. It can have the potential of having a live broadcaster show with substantial ratings. So this is one of the attractive qualities of talent shows. And looking closer at what defines a talent show then, well, this is Jean Jalaby's definition of a talent show. He mentions these 6 elements: a competition-centric structure, skills-based performance, a panel of judges, a public vote if it's a stage show, and an elimination process and a winner. And of course, just based on that, sort of initially, it sounds like something we know, doesn't it? But I think going more into the more particular differences and similarities here, of course, in the Eurovision Song Contest, the judges are replaced by the not so visible juries, national juries, and no one is really eliminated in the final, but only in the semifinals. So several of these elements are sort of a little bit up for debate, I think. Another significant difference is, of course, the difference between performing an original song or performing a cover song. And in talent shows, usually they'll perform cover songs, maybe until the finale, and then they'll perform their original song, signifying their transition from amateur to professional artist entering into the music industry. I think another noteworthy difference here is what we could call ideally the more positive spirit of unity, inclusivity, peace, togetherness cultivated in the Eurovision for the most part. Let's just keep it at that. For instance, in the finale, even the eliminated countries are still allowed to vote and sort of ensure that the winner is collectively chosen. And in the semifinals, even when artists and countries are eliminated, the cameras tend to not focus for long on their sad faces, whereas in reality talent shows, you would really cultivate that, right? You would have to sort of, oh, this is, your journey has come to an end. Let's look back at your journey in this competition and previous moments. And we don't do all of that in the Eurovision. Similarities, I think they share a talent pool, and in many instances, these talent shows have worked as a kind of incubator for Eurovision artists and new singers who later compete in the Eurovision. Lalchev and Oliver describe in their article from 2021 how reality talent shows have gained a vital role for the music industry as spaces for artist development and potential shortcuts to a successful music career through media attention, but that the, and I quote, short-term and superficial nature of the talent show, end quote, does not deliver long-term solutions for these artists. So this circumstance, the precarious conditions for upcoming music artists can probably explain why many of these talent show contestants subsequently pursue opportunities available in Eurovision. However, what remains unclear is not only what reality television elements the Eurovision Song Contest in fact uses, but also to what extent this use has changed over time. I'll try to address this now in my analysis. A little bit about the method here. It's a content analysis, and I've sampled the finale shows from 1995, 2005, 2015, 2025 to sort of try to get the big picture. It's a work in progress, so what I'll present today is only the numbers from 1995 and 2025. I still have work to do. When I do that, it might provide some different nuances. And of course, also, I include 1995 because I want to compare with what the show looked like before this wave of reality TV hit in the late 90s. Another, I think, vulnerable point in all of this is reality TV can be really tricky to define. All the scholars involved discuss this heavily, and I use this definition from Annie Jerslev, defining it as serialized factual programs about ordinary people and or celebrities in ordinary and or extraordinary settings where the participants are observed in everyday situations or asked to endure situations with a constructed set of rules where the camera intimately captures their emotional reactions. And I want to emphasize the last part because I think that's where we can connect this to Eurovision. The other parts, not so much. Along the way, I had to develop some coding rules here just to say a little bit about what's behind these headlines and categories. I've focused a lot on big emotions. In practice, this meant I counted their reaction sequences when they react to receiving points, and the sequences when the winner is revealed. Maybe you remember JJ is very emotional, running around the arena, hugging his mom. It was actually a quite long sequence. I did not include what happened during the musical performances. I would regard this as more rehearsed emotional expressions. So this is, again, a nuance. I was very oriented towards when are there sort of very competitive elements in all of this. For that reason, I didn't count whenever the scoreboard is on in general, because I think these periods of the show can be quite polite, cordial conversations, more static in many ways. Whereas when they put on the top list, for instance, a top 5 or top 3, they're sort of really underlining who are the main competitors here, making it more of a competition. And I tried also to look at how long did that whole thing take in general. Elimination, the elimination engine is what we call what many of these talent shows have, and it's also there in the ESC, but only in the semifinals, so it wasn't counted here. And then fan and contestant interviews. I think another characteristic about talent shows about music is they tend to spend quite a lot of time on interviews with the contestants, highlighting their individual experience and journey from being unknown and ordinary towards becoming more well-known artists, creating this narrative about them. And I also looked at contestant interviews in the 2025 finale, but also one called fan interviews, because I noticed they had that as well. And I think because the fans and audience members are generally unknown, ordinary people, this can represent a characteristic of the talent show and reality TV. And I've also looked at the total duration to be able to calculate the percentage of all of this. And I looked at the recorded versions of these finales without the commentators, because I think this can vary very much from country to country. So I tried to sort of get a neutral version of this. And these are the numbers. If we look at the bold underlined numbers here, the big ones, it illustrates the number of amount of reality elements is 4% in 1995 and 13% in 2025. And the duration is also different here, 6 minutes and 33 minutes. Looking closely at the individual codes, there are some major differences between these two finales. In particular, the 2025 finale spends more time on big emotions by having more and longer sequences with emotional reactions to the points, especially since the public vote points are a part of an almost 13-minute long sequence with lots of big and quite spontaneous emotions. Last year, maybe you remember, there were some quite negative reactions also and emotions, since certain countries received 0 points from the public. For instance, the UK and Switzerland. Denmark got 2 points. Which represents one of the rare situations where the ESC finale focuses negatively on the losers, more akin to what a reality TV show would do. In comparison, there was no public vote in 1995. Not a single fan or contestant was interviewed, so it was a very different program. Another noteworthy detail is also that the finale in 2025 is 83 minutes longer, so it has grown in general to a little more over than 4 hours, as Sophie also mentioned. So there have been some changes here, and this leads me to my conclusion. Last slide. So, as this is still a work in progress, there's more to discuss and uncover, but so far, preliminary, I found an increase in reality TV elements. But I think it's also important to acknowledge there are certain counter elements in all of this that look very little like reality TV, and that the ESC finales often emphasize consensus, conviviality, sociability, and all in all downplay the competitive aspect of the event at points. Certainly, the public vote, of course, gives a highly dramatic finish, 13 minutes, as I mentioned, and my content analysis has also shown me that the finale consists of so many different elements and tons of transitions between them. So it's a very sort of layered text with lots of different things in it. So while reality TV elements seem to have increased, it's only one aspect of what's happening in these finales. I'm also considering looking closer at the semi-final elimination segments once I get to those, because I think elimination is this really typical thing for reality TV. But I think another interesting question is to what extent the public service media organizations in general are using insights from producing reality TV programming and producing Eurovision Song Contest entries, or having hosted the show, or the other way around. So if you know of any such cross-pollinations, let me know. I'm curious to hear what you think about all of these findings. Thank you.